This is the Ely Climate Group and Cure at the Ely Folk School with Troy Goodnough from Morris, Minnesota. Troy is the Sustainability Director at the University of Minnesota, Morris. And he's here because Ann Ewing spent many years in Morris and knows all about what's going on there and put us in contact with Troy. And so we want to figure out what we should be doing in terms of what small towns ought to be doing to become more sustainable. Troy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, friends. Can you guys hear me back there okay? If I project at this level? All right. As you said, I am Troy, and I serve as Sustainability Director at the University of Minnesota Morris. And we're going to talk for a little bit about the Morris model, which is our community partnership, and how we advance sustainability in small towns. Thanks again to the Ely Climate Group and Cure and friends for the invitation tonight. I've been following your work. I've seen some of the press out of the Timber Jay about some of your conversations. So thanks for the invitation. I'm glad to be here. This is a kind of a special and strange homecoming for me. I was partially raised in Babbitt, Minnesota. So when the mines closed in the 80s, that's when my family migrated to northern Wisconsin. So I definitely feel tensions, like environmental, economic, social tensions, and I love this place. I should also say, I also wanted to say in my thank you for the invitation to come here, also Ann Ewing's emails over the last many years saying, hey, watching what you're doing in Morris, keep up the good job. I really appreciate it. So thank you, Ann, for that kind encouragement over the years. And I love Ely. And so I'm a book nerd. I actually have my mom and dad here tonight in the front row. My dad, Bruce, and my mom, Linda. So not that that's stressful at all. No, I'm kidding. But I've got, you can see my mom and my sister there, and this is the rock at Birch Lake, a really special place for me personally. And I was climbing on it just a few hours ago. My parents got some pictures. And this is my son. You can see how he's aging. And his son, and my son's name is Ely. And people say, Ely after the town? Yes, Ely, that is my son. Ely, after the town. And the thought was maybe he would be a little bit tame and a little bit wild, right? So who knows? So the Morris model. So they say don't bury the lead. So what is the Morris model? Well, the Morris model is just a name for a partnership. So it helps to name things. The Morris model is our partnership between the city of Morris, the University of Minnesota Morris, Stevens County, the hospital, the school district, the University of Minnesota West Central Research and Outreach Center, and we've been working together to advance our shared sustainability aspirations. And so what are some of those aspirations? So we started with some framing for our work. So when people say, what does this group work on? We say, well, we work on energy conservation, clean energy, community resilience, cultural exchange, and celebration. So those are some of the initial pillars. But of course, we've expanded our work. We work on things like e-mobility, transportation, waste reduction, recycling, education, and more. But you got to start somewhere. And I don't know how you react, but sometimes when I hear friends doing really amazing things, there's a bit of a feeling of, oh man, I'm behind. And then you feel a little defeated. And then sometimes I feel yeah, I've got work to do in this community or wherever I am, right? And so I think we can have mixed reactions to that. But what I want to encourage any group, including this one, is there are a lot of stages to the work we do. And it's not rocket science, but a lot of times the work we do follows this path of relationship building, and that is real work. That's really hard work. Staying and keeping in relationships. Assessment, that's pretty obvious, asking what have we done before, when has this community done something when people were really feeling good, what are other communities doing, planning, obvious, making those plans, And then we all want to get to the action. But the thing is doing this in the reverse order is what a lot of people want to do. We want to act without having much of a plan, without having really asked many questions about what other people did, without very few friends. So if we flip the script and we do it this way, I think it can work out better. So that's where I live, out on the prairie. Well, it was the prairie. It is not the prairie anymore. 150 years plus ago, this was the tall grass prairie. This is the Dakota. We are on the homeland of the Dakota people, right? Minnesota Makoche, the land where the waters reflect the sky. 30% of our students at Morris are Native American. And so that's like national news, right? It's a really outstanding place. We're a liberal arts college. We were a boarding school, a Native American boarding school at the turn of the century. Then we were the West Central School of Agriculture for half a century. And now for over half a century, we've been a liberal arts college. And that's where I live with my wife, Jennifer, who's an analytical chemistry professor. And so she's a lot of fun. And my son, Ely. And so if you're like my parents, you don't think I probably had, and I'm trying to channel the stand-up comic a little bit here. I'm seeing my friend from London. We're working together here a little, and I want to give a good sermon here. So I'm going to try and mix it up here. But if you're like my parents, you're kind of wondering, what's sustainability even about? Do you even really have a job? And so in my past career, for 10 years, I was a 3,5 compound semiconductor metal organic vapor phase epitaxialist, which meant I grew lasers, crystal lasers, whatever that was. And so since 2006, I've served as sustainability director at the Morris campus. This was the first sustainability coordinator position hired in the U of M system. And I think I'm the longest running coordinator, and they haven't fired me yet. Who knows? But they haven't fired me yet. But sustainability, what are we talking about? And so, we're talking about how do we meet the needs of the present, us, without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs, right? So that's kind of a heady question. And so it kind of invokes questions about intergenerational justice. How do we harmonize tensions? A lot of my Native friends would say, Troy, this has been a part of our culture and discussion for a long time, seventh generational ethic. But at the end of the day, I think there's also kind of this feeling sometimes that is the sustainability thing, is it a United Nations plot to take over the world or something like that? And what I want to tell you is there is an international conversation going on about human flourishing. And the conversation is asking questions like, do we want to live in a community with poverty, with hunger? Do we want good education for everybody? And do we want fair treatment of all gendered people? Do we want clean water? Do we want affordable clean energy and more? Those are the 17 development goals. And they open a door for us to have a conversation with each other. The good news is things have changed radically in 15 years. If we look at the carbon footprint of the state of Minnesota, again, there's more to sustainability than energy and recycling, right? So that's what the SDGs remind us. But energy is important. We've made great progress in Minnesota. Our top greenhouse gas emitting sector is transportation, followed by agriculture, followed by electricity. And imagine that. Our power plants that produce electricity are third in the list of producing carbon emissions. So we've made progress, we're making progress. And if you haven't been to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency site to look at some of this amazing breakdown data, I highly encourage you to do it, because we can see, for example, whether it's in the industrial sector or the residential sector, that's where we use a lot of natural gas. So you can see the breakdowns and learn a little bit about light-duty trucks is a huge greenhouse gas emitting sector in transportation. Good to know. So this is where I live. It is much different than Ely, or where I lived, or Babbitt, where I lived, or Phillips, Wisconsin, where I lived. The prairie poet Bill Holm talked about the horizontal grandeur of the prairie. Great words from Bill Holm. And so I do experience some of that, but I feel most at home when I'm driving up north and I see the transition and then I breathe out, and I feel like, whew, I'm home. But this is where I live. And so we've made this a home now for since 2005. What I like about Morris is I'm going to thread tonight the story of the University of Minnesota Morris with the city of Morris, because our stories are intertwined. But what I love about our community, our campus, is around every corner there's kind of like something to look at. And so you can see wind turbines, you can see solar hot water panels, you can see solar electricity panels, you can see cows under solar panels, you can see composting. And I'm thankful for some of the attention we've received. Obviously, we're trying to let people know something good is happening in Minnesota and out on the western edge of what was the prairie. And so we get 100% of our energy at Morris is carbon neutral. 2 large wind turbines produce over 60% of our electricity. And I think that's pretty cool. And nationally, we're one of the schools that produces the most electricity per student in the United States. So this was around Earth Day. This was April 19th. And I realize it's hard to see, but you see this flat line? You see the flat line? That's 0 kilowatt. That's how much power we demanded from the utility that day. So 0. From 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. the next day, we demanded 0 power from the utility that day. And then I put this one, this was a couple days later. I want to show this because then for just a couple hours between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., or 4 p.m., we went up to about 800 kW. So our campus needs about 1,000 kilowatt to run, or about a megawatt. Again, there's been some attention on Morris as a climate-friendly school. We appreciate that in the Washington Post and in the Star Tribune. But what I'm really excited about is the attention we got in the New York Times for our Morris model, for the community partnership working across political differences to try to advance some sustainability objectives. I really like what our former city manager says here. We've never focused on climate as being the thing to talk about because you don't have to, said Blaine Hill, noting the benefits of lower energy bills, more local economic development. You can go around and just start working on that stuff. Mike Reese is the renewable energy director. Mike Reese is the director at the West Central Research and Outreach Center. So he's head of the University of Minnesota Research and Outreach Center. And this is Mike Reese, the director at the Research Center, said it didn't matter that he had political disagreements with Troy Goodnough. Troy's on the more liberal side. I'm on the more conservative side. But we also share the same philosophies when it comes to the changing climate, resiliency, but especially on generating wealth and making our community better for next generations. That's true. So we disagree about a lot, but we work on things we can agree on. So everybody writes themselves into a story in different places. So I'm going to write the campus into a story this way. So yeah, I had mentioned I started around 2006. In 2007, leadership always matters. Our chancellor, Jackie Johnson, total rock star, signed the American president's climate commitment, saying we're going to become carbon neutral as a campus. How would we do that? We did not know. We did not know how we would do that. And then fast forward a decade later, the same organization that kind of made people make those commitments, called Second Nature, changed the commitment to say be carbon neutral and do community resilience planning, campus community resilience planning. So a lot of people didn't like that. So these are the colleges who committed to carbon neutrality. These are the handful of colleges that said we'll do both. We'll become carbon neutral and we'll do this messy work of working with our community on resilience, which is also our way of saying climate adaptation without saying climate. So our emissions have been cut by about 50% since we began, which means we're only half done. And a lot of that's because of the electrical work. So we've got work yet to do. Now, Chancellor Johnson at the time, back then, Jackie Johnson, she was working with some national sustainability organizations And she was paying attention, and she's like, there's some interesting things happening at Oberlin College. And they had this thing called the Oberlin Project at the time. And they're working, the campus and the community are working together on sustainability stuff. And so the seeds of the Morris model were growing. We thought, we have a river in Morris called the Pomme de Terre River, so we thought about, how about a Pomme de Terre project? That was too long, Morris model. The Oberlin project, I don't think it's still going, but it was cool because they outlined some goals, and they had some really cool online tools where you could see like the electricity usage at the school and at city buildings, and that was a long time ago now. I think that one thing that was helpful as we started thinking about our Morris model work is how do we engage with people, right? So if you're a community development person or engagement person, you know, what are some principles? And I just want to show you these quick, because this document's old, they've updated, but start with people, stay with people. Ugh. Didn't Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, say something like people are hell? So start with people, stay with people. Connect on common values, acknowledge ambivalence. Once in a while say, man, you got a point there. It's really hard for me to do that. Okay, no. Scale from the personal to the planet. So principles, just trying to bring some humility into our work. So again, the Morris model, students, intergenerational work is very important to our Morris model work. We're always trying to engage youth somehow, somewhere in our work. And again, these were some of the early pillars: energy conservation, clean energy, community resilience, cultural exchange, and celebration. Celebration, right? So celebration is about like trying to like submit for awards. So in 2013, 2014, a group called the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, IATP, and this other group called the Jefferson Center, they reached out to Morris and they said, would you like to be one of the first places in Minnesota to do something called a rural climate dialogue? And the story of Morris is a story of a lot of firsts. So a lot of the first time people want to try things, they go to Morris, which doesn't always work out great, but sometimes it does. We said we don't really want to say climate dialogue. So can we talk about like extreme weather stuff and extreme weather preparedness? And so that's what we did. And we had a nice community meeting. There's lots to say about that. A year later, we applied for an award. These are two students. Again, students accepting the award and part of this work. That started us on our resilience planning journey. In 2015, we worked with the clean energy resource teams. Have you guys heard of CERTs? Yeah, I hope so. So some of these are like, I'm going to inject a little of a, do you know this group? And hopefully you will say, yes, I know that group. Because the clean energy resource teams, they're great at helping to fund your projects. And so we worked on something called the Morris Model Clean Energy Hub Blueprint, where we kind of dreamt big. We dreamt big. And one of the things we dreamed together was, how about if we did what we did? So on campus, we had LED lighting, those newfangled light-emitting diodes. That's what I did kind of in my previous life, semiconductor work. And so we had them in the parking lot, dark sky compliant, all over our parking lots on campus. The physicists were angry because they couldn't use the telescope to properly look at the stars. They're like, get on it. But then our city said, this seems cool. So we worked on an LED lighting project on Main Street because that's what the city controlled. And that helped advance our energy conservation pillar. And we did it. Morris looks bright future with local clean energy project. Minnesota firm has new approach to clean energy financing. We found a third-party financer to fund LED lighting on Main Street. That was like one of our early victories. And then a couple years later, the utility put LED lighting across the community. But so you see this chain. We tried it on the campus. The city was like, that sounds cool. And then it kind of grew. So going back to, in November 2015, we had something called the EWAM, the Morris Extreme Weather Action Meeting. And if you look at the text, we don't say climate in the text. This is about trying to meet people where they are. Now, do I want to talk about climate? Yes, I do. Do I think climate change is real? Yes, I do. But the goal has been to try to bring people together and not immediately give them a reason to not hang out. And so we had a wonderful dialogue. This is a shot from one of the dialogues. This is Pete Wyckoff, who's now the assistant commissioner at the Department of Commerce. He helped play a role behind the scenes with Senator Smith in writing the Inflation Reduction Act. Total rock star. Here, that's Pete. He's being a dork. He's talking about insulation in his house. I love it. We caught him on camera bragging about how he had reduced his energy usage. And then we sent students out across the community to develop our Morris Model Community Resilience Plan 1.0. That was in 2016. And they just visited with community members and were like, do you think like weather is extreme, or do you think there's any challenges? We had a set of questions. They put all that together, and that helped form our plan. Along the same line of thinking about resilience, we've been thinking about microgrids since about 2015. How do we microgrid our community, or how do we do more energy storage is another way of talking about some of our challenges. We've received feedback from the community that it's not always windy. Although if you live in Morris, it's really, people are saying it's windy here in Ely. It's like windy, and Mitch can back me up. It is windy in Morris all the time. And some people said it's not sunny all the time. And so we took that to heart, that it isn't sunny, it isn't windy all the time. We're going to need some energy storage. It sounds like some of our best experts are suggesting that as well. Then, entering the stage of this work, which was really fun, was something called the Institute on the Environment's Climate Smart Municipalities Program. And so we frequently collaborate with the Institute on the Environment, and they're a wonderful partner at the University of Minnesota, and they partner Minnesota cities with German cities. And so IONE, I'll call them Institute on the Environment, IONE came to Morris and said, would you like to be like the first community to partner with a bunch of Germans? And we said, absolutely, that sounds really good. And so we were partnered with a community called Saarbeck, one of the greenest communities in Europe. This is our former mayor and city manager signing a climate protection agreement and technical partnership. Now we snuck that through a little bit. I was a little, I don't know about that, but they were excited to join the partnership, and the Germans talk about climate protection. Interesting framing. There's a lot of interesting framing that other people use. And so that feels like care. Anyway, so we signed a climate protection. This is Saarbeck, bioenergy park, solar on an old military bunker, wind turbines. It's crazy. They make 400% more energy than their community needs, total inspiration. We take kids there in January. There have been delegations between Minnesotans and Germans going back and forth. These are college students. Look at this little University of Minnesota pennant. Yay! And happy. I'm wearing this 5 o'clock shadow because I didn't have any luggage that trip. That's all I can grow. Anyway, but that's their. They have a downtown also heating system that sends out heat to local buildings right in the downtown, and you can see it's glass. They have displays inside of it, totally educational. They have a Saarbeck Energy World Park out at the Bioenergy Park for kids. They have thousands of school children coming in. Pretty cool. So along this whole time frame, 2015, moving forward, we tried to have meetings at our local theater. So this is one. Any of you see Chasing Ice? Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful movie. It'd be so awesome at your local movie theater here in town. And so first, we got people in the door. We're going to watch Chasing Ice, but first, we're going to talk about Minnesota's changing weather and how our community is preparing for extreme weather. What's absent from this? Yeah, climate. But that's what I want to talk about, but it's not here. We're not, and we got all these people, all these partners on here saying, that sounds good. That's good. Got some churches and others, like everybody. See? Nothing to be afraid of. We're just going to watch some ice melting. Nothing to, And so we continued on. We showed movies before the flood. Oh, shoot. Before the flood, we showed Switch. Now, enter the stage. Morris campus had one of the first Chevy Bolts, fully electric car. So that electric car demonstration rides. Now entering the stage, electric car show. We went from riding an electric car to there's enough electric vehicles in our community, we could do a show. Right, okay. So then, in 2016, we wanted to let more people know what's going on, document our work. We opened up a website, and we asked a student to help us with a logo. Morris Model, a partnership for progress. So, inspired by our German friends and in alignment with the work we had already been doing, so a lot of the, I'm sorry, Mitch, is okay. Okay, a lot of the work that our when you meet with German friends, I'm going to stereotype an entire country. So, but when we meet with our German friends, they're always like, blah blah blah, yeah. What's the project? What's your project? What project are you working on? You know, and so we were inspired. So the Morris Model 100. This is a list of projects. So what they had done in Zarbeck and what we had been working on a little bit was, if you get a group of friends together, it's pretty easy to come up with 100 things that you think you could do, or at least it was with this group. Like, we could do this, we could do that, from the small to the sublime. Just we could have a movie like Chasing Ice at the movie theater. We could have a couple more turbines, wind turbines. Okay, that's a big difference. And so this Morris Model 100 clean energy projects. Most of these are done, by the way, in 10 years. I mean, 10 years. In 10 years, we were able to do some things. Community resilience planning projects, Zarbeck projects, community outreach, education, and capacity building projects. There's a whole list of things that we came up with. And then, in 2016, we joined the Green Step Cities program. And my understanding is Ely is also a part of the Green Step Cities program. And so we had already been doing some cool stuff in Morris, but I gotta tell you, travel changes people, right? So when our city manager came back from Germany, our former city manager, Blaine Hill, he was like, our refrigerators are too big. Why aren't we biking around the community more? Why is it? Whew! And so I was like, wow, absolutely, that sounds really good. So we started, we began our Green Step Cities partnership. Right now, we're at step 5. And again, these frameworks are helpful just because it helps organize thinking. Just like the development goals help us organize our thinking when we're talking with our friends at a cocktail party. What are the 17 United Nations development goals? No poverty, no hunger. Right? So the same thing here. The Green Step Cities just helps us organize our thoughts about what are some things we can do to be a green city. So stay on the path. Remember how that one of the pillars was celebration? And so celebration, again, is about let's taking a moment to say, hey, we're actually doing some things. From the small to the moderately sublime, it's okay to, this is about Minnesota culture too, right? Where nothing is, you could always be a little bit better, like where, and so we submitted ourselves for awards. We got the Minnesota Community Award. We got the Humphrey Institute's Local Government Innovation Award. And again, so I got to brag for a minute. So this is Mackenzie Dice. Mackenzie just graduated as a climatologist from graduate school, just got her PhD a few days ago. This is Sydney Bauer. You're going to hear more about Sid in a minute. She helped develop and expand our composting program in Morris. And there's a book out right now. Ed Humes, a well-known environmental author, and the author of Garbology, just wrote a new book called Total Garbage. And in his acknowledgments, he lists Sydney Bauer along with Greta Thunberg and others as inspiration that youth are fueling and inspiring him and giving him hope. Amen to that. And then Sophie's been rocking it for years, working with various environmental organizations, youth organizations in the state. And Mackenzie is here again, getting a prize with us. So the message here is youth engagement, trying to figure out a way to engage youth in your community in some way. Okay, so then we were thinking, like, how might we develop a green heating system for our community? So we worked together with the campus, the hospital, and the school district. And we did a district energy heating study with Evergreen Energy, one of our top district heating companies in Minnesota. And that went really good. Again, so this is Jan Brummelhaus, our first German, we started a German internship program. So we started bringing interns over from the Münster University of Applied Sciences. That was kind of a first. Here's Sophie, the one I mentioned who was doing, and then this is Brian Herman, our Vice Chancellor of Finance and Facilities. Again, leadership always matters. Having some people who are willing to try things is just so important. And cultivating leaders, celebrating your leaders, telling them when they're doing the good stuff, right? They just hear the bad stuff. So letting people know when they're doing something good. Okay, so we did this district energy study. We knew that we could do it. And then a vortex happened. And like we've had vortices now. You know, we have new language. We've had multiple vortices in Minnesota, including a vortex in Minnesota that plunged our temperatures and killed the boiler at the school. So in the middle of that minus 30, 40 degree weather, they had to emergency put in a boiler, and that kind of screwed up our plans. That's okay, but that's what kind of happened. So we're on the path. District heating, now we're gonna have to wait. 2018 was a big year. 2018 was when we put together our first big strategic plan. We worked with our local initiative foundation, West Central Initiative. I don't know who your initiative foundation is, but they gave us money to take people. We went to Camp Ripley and we locked ourselves in a room and we said, okay, what are some big goals and ideas and stuff? You got more actions? And coming out of that, we came up with three big, you remember when people were talking about BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals? I never liked that. But anyway, so we came up with some big goals for ourselves. Produce 80% of the energy consumed in our county. So produce our energy locally. Energy shed, right? We've heard of watersheds and food sheds, energy shed. We're going to make energy in our community. That was a big one. The second one was reduce energy consumption by 30%, and the third one was no landfilling no landfilling of waste in the county, and then a bunch of other stuff. So these were some of the three big goals that we had. And then we revisited our Morris Model 100 and updated some because we had made some significant progress on the old 100 list of projects. So along this time frame as well, there's been exciting things happening with transportation, right? I mentioned we got a Chevy Bolt. Look at this weird jacket. A friend gave it to me, said her dad loved it. He's no longer with us, but I was like, I'll take that jacket. I'm gonna wear the heck out of it. So we worked with Otter Tail Power Company to install one of the first level 2 fast chargers on campus. And then our friends at the University of Minnesota West Central Research and Outreach Center installed one of the first fast chargers in West Central Minnesota. And if you haven't been out in our area, once you kind of get past, I don't know, where you can get donuts at the Clearwater, they got great apple fritters. That's pretty much after that, it's like, you're not going to charge your car. And so there's a much longer, hour-long conversation or more about electrification 2.0 and probably the need for, a new Rural Electrification 2.0 Act that's maybe a bit more. But how do we have rural communities not get left behind in this massive transition that's going on? And it is going on. We have some of the biggest dairies in the country in Morris. And so one of the things that happened is the group that wanted to do that started engaging with the county commissioners, with Morris Model partners, and kind of in the spirit of wanting to generate more energy in our county, we have now a renewable natural gas plant in Morris as well. If you guys haven't heard of Solar United Neighbors, I highly encourage you visit with those folks. So they're a nonprofit, and what they do is they work on solar cooperatives. It's kind of weird that they use that word, but that's okay. What they really mean is like a buying pool. So they're like, do you want solar on your house? Do you want solar on your house? Do you want solar on your house? Great. We'll create a kind of leverage our buying power to buy down the cost of panels and the labor. And so they did that. And this is my friend Eric. He's the renewable energy director at the West Central Research and Outreach Center, and he's getting solar on his house right now. He's also my Aikido instructor. Of course, sustainability is not just, again, like clean energy and recycling. In 2020, we worked with the Minnesota Humanities Center to bring the We Are Water program to our community. So we worked with the Soil Water Conservation District. We worked with CURE, which is in Montevideo, Minnesota. We worked with partners to bring this wonderful exhibit. Has this? I assume this exhibit has been in Ely, the We Are Water exhibit. If not, this is like a great exhibit to bring. And we also brought the Why Treaties Matter exhibit at the same time. So a nice pairing between the We Are Water and thinking about treaty rights in Minnesota. And we brought that to our community. Also, if you go to www.wearewaterwcmn.com, there's some wonderful videos there that unpack the messages of that curated exhibit. So I don't have to tell you that water is important and can be controversial. So in 2020, in the spirit of e-mobility, our Morris students at the Morris Campus Student Association said, we think we should work with the community on electric bikes. We could be more walkable, bikeable, but how do we make biking more accessible? Not everybody has the strength, and so there's issues of ability, right? And so we started an electric bike program at the Regional Fitness Center, and people loved it. And that was some of the first times that people got on an e-mobility thing. And so we've got the electric car rides, now they're riding electric bikes. And what I can tell you is in the last few years, we're seeing a lot more e-transportation and a lot more e-bikes floating around. Because I was run over to someone and I'm like, what you got there? Well, it's my e-bike. If you haven't used or seen the En-ROADS software, there's a set of software. This is the En-ROADS software is a wonderful software that especially can be used with groups. Here we brought it into this is one of the teachers, Brittany House at the Morris Area School District. We brought En-ROADS into the classroom to do a climate simulation. It's like a model UN, where you each play a country and decide like what your policy is going to be, and then you move the sliders and we find out how hot the planet's going to get. And so this is great. You can do this with all kinds of groups, and it lets you think about how policy choices shape the temperature of the planet. Here again, a cast of characters. For about 10 years, the Morris campus collected food scraps and put them behind the softball field. Now, when this idea was introduced to our chancellor, Jackie Johnson at the time is amazing, and she was like, "That sounds good, but right, like, is this going to work with will the rodents and will the critters break down the stuff? Like, are we pretty confident about that?" And we were like, yes, the critters are good. If we pile it high and deep, the critters will eat it. I mean, the microbiological critters, not. And sure enough, that is what happened. So we've diverted more than 1 million pounds of food scraps from the landfill, and students helped get that project going. They went down to Iowa to compost school with some salty old dog facilities folks who were like, I don't know, but it all worked out. But because of some of the work that happened on campus, this and constant engagement with the city and county, this is the relationship building piece. We're like, you want to come out and see our compost pile? Come on. You want to see our level 2 charger? Want to see our electric car? So continued engagement. And so in the last year or two, now we're standing atop the Pope Douglas compost facility. They built the county, the county with partners, not Stevens, built this industrial compost facility. And so now the Morris waste, and when I say Morris, I mean the campus, I mean the downtown businesses, the food scraps from Pizza Ranch to Common Cup, the church-run coffee shop, all those scraps end up here. Here's Sydney again. This is Griffin. He's our Morris Model Coordinator, also a Morris alum, and the City of Morris Coordinator for the sustainability. There's yours truly. And then this is Jenna Jambeck. Jenna Jambeck is a MacArthur genius. She's a renowned scholar of plastic waste in the ocean, and she came to Morris to see what was going on, and she's got this process. So just like we carbon footprint things, she's got this process for measuring waste leakage in your community. So we were learning about that as well with Dr. Jenna Jambeck. So they're learning about, so yay composting. And what that means for us is people love our waste. Why do they love our waste? Especially the waste that goes to in the incinerator, because it's not wet, right? And we can feel good that it's not in the ground rotting and making methane. Okay, so 2021, the liquor store gets solar on it. That was the second line in the New York Times article. The line was, there's a small farming town in Morris, Minnesota that cools their beer with the sun. That's right, that's right. That's exactly right. And so, but they didn't stop there. You know, like this was real active leadership by the city council and the city manager and the mayor. 150 kilowatts of solar installed on the liquor store, the library, which is geothermal, City Hall, and the community center. That's cool. Okay, again, thinking about intergenerational engagement, in 2021 we launched something called the Morris Challenge, which brings in high school students from all across the region to learn about all this cool stuff happening in Morris. So we go downtown in the city and we're like, look at the library, look at the City Hall, look at the liquor store. So then, again, along this timeline, you can see there's planning popping up at intervals, like time to update some stuff. So we knew that we wanted to do this kind of new planning approach, and I'll say more about that in a minute, but we basically started a Morris Resiliency Discussion Series, where we met with some fun experts from across the state to talk about how climate change, without talking about climate, to talk about how climate change was going to affect various areas of our life. And so we did a bunch of webinars, and that was to try to cultivate a base of people so that when we ultimately got to working on our next community resilience plan, we would have some friends. And so this was also kind of, we're still pandemic-y time, so we worked with the Second Nature and the Nature Conservancy. Many of you have heard of the Nature Conservancy, but they have an expert there, Dr. Adam Welchel, who has this approach called the Community Resilience Building Approach, CRB. If you go online and you type CRB, you'll find it. And so it's an approach for talking and doing community resilience planning. So this is another planning tool that your community can consider to doing this kind of work. And then we've got a bunch of interesting observations about that. As soon as we finished that work, this happened. So we've had vortexes, room plans, and then we're like, so we wrapped up our resilience building plan, and then in May 2022, a derecho hit Morris. This is my house. We were down in the basement, and we were like hearing stuff cracking, and a twisting and a blowing, and this is a 100-year-old pine tree laying in the crust of the beautiful crown of one of the most beautiful elm trees in Morris. And then in the backyard, another big elm tree, which had another really nice crown, twisted, sheared, and chopped off the back end of my house, which took over a year to get fixed. And so it was also happened right around graduation. So we had students trying to take finals without power. You know, we were trying to prepare for graduation without power. Again, so this is this energy storage thing and microgridding coming back into attention. And so if you come to Morris, you will see we installed a battery. This is a small one. This is a baby one. 90 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So this is not a technology used a ton yet in the United States, but soon, just like everything else, it will be just another thing that we do, right? So a lithium iron phosphate battery. And so this was a project, again, a collaboration with the Institute on the Environment. We launched something called CREST, the University of Minnesota Center for Renewable Energy Storage Technology. So our friends at so how do we plan for energy storage? So we're working on that together. And one of the most exciting projects we're working on now is something called a flow battery. So what we want to do is we want to install a 1,000 kilowatt, a 1 megawatt liquid battery, so you could have things in it like iron water. So we could store megawatts of power in just containers of iron water. Crazy, right? So we're working on this with our utility and the top microgrid company in Minnesota, which is OATI. So this is one of our ongoing plans right now. The students said, all those electric bikes, how about regular bikes? The Nice Ride program in Minneapolis was shutting down, so we reached out and said, we would love some of those bikes. So here we are at the Nice Ride place with students getting a bunch of bikes to haul them back to Morris. And so I'm excited to say that, so culminating all of this work, in July 2023, the Morris model was awarded the Department of Energy's Energizing Rural Communities Prize. Whew, with $100,000 to help support our Morris Model Coordinator position. So this was really exciting. And we've got a wonderful video online of our coordinator, Griffin walking into the liquor store, taking that solar beer off the shelf. And then right after that, Minnesota Public Radio came back out to report on the Morris model. Again, our former city manager and our new mayor, Mayor Wallers, feeling proud about the work that has been happening in Morris over the last decade and their part in it. Because Morris has been doing some things first, we also reached out to the MPCA, reached out to us, we reached out to them, and we got 2 of the first fully electric school buses in Minnesota. So this was a big move by our school board to say, should we just get 1 electric school bus? And they said, why don't we try 2? So, okay, well, we're going to try it. So we've been piloting fully electric school buses for a while now. And then, again, in terms of bringing people along, our utility, Ottertail, in the last year just installed fast chargers in Morris. So now we have infrastructure, so people can come from out of town and charge up without fear. In fact, the other day I stopped, there was a guy eating a taco here, and I walked up to his car, I said, and you do that kind of thing where it's like, and he knew, he got out of the car, and he was like, so, this is the car he was in. That's me, but you have to imagine, the car was here, he was eating his taco, and I was like, tell me more about your Ford Mach-E Mustang. And it was great, because he's a regular dad dude saying, man, this is saving me so much money on gas. I love my electric vehicle. And then we celebrated with the MPC about the electric buses. These are all German interns who their vertical is a little wanting. And then, again, what I'm excited about is our school board. So we've been trying to cultivate our school board to try to do some stuff, right? Take a step. And so they did. In September, just recently, they installed 40 kilowatts of solar on top of the bus garage using the Solar for Schools program. So this is really cool. So there's money for schools to put solar on your school. It's important we use this funding because it's there, and if we don't do it, then people will think our schools do not want solar on their buildings. So it's there. We helped the school prepare the application, and it's awesome. So I just want to say a couple more words about kind of a string of things. One is this international partnership has grown and been really productive. This goofball here is Michael. He wrote a report on our new water treatment plant and how it performs. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency came to Morris and they said, your community's putting too much salt into the Pomme de Terre River. We've got some of the hardest water in Minnesota. And so students before this helped think about, do we need a central plant? And the answer was, yeah, we kind of do. And then engineers confirmed that. And so the city built a centralized plant, so we don't need water softeners anymore. This goofball here, Felix, he wrote a wonderful report on the performance of solar photovoltaic installations in the city of Morris. So if you're curious, how could solar work on city buildings in my town, this is a wonderful report that walks you through how it's working in Morris. I also want to return you to Morris for a minute. We've got some wonderful folks. This is Anne DeHummel. She's a total rock star. Here she is planting trees. She's got this piano, set of piano pieces called Prayers for a Feverish Planet that she's been playing all around the world. So if you're looking for the intersection of culture and music and philosophy, invite Anne. She's all over the world. Now, not everything runs awesome. So we've got two large wind turbines, Bert and Ernie. Ernie died for a little bit. In October, Ernie went down for a bit and needed a new gearbox. So it took us about a year. This was an exciting day. Ernie getting a new gearbox. He'll be back online. And but that whole year, right, people are like, what's going on with that wind turbine? What's going on with that wind? That's good. Yeah, ask away. But for 20 to 25 years, we have a guaranteed power price for 60% of our electricity at the Morris campus, and the net present value is very positive. So when people are like, is this a good financial investment? The answer is yes. This is good energy risk hedging. We're doing things now like putting solar on poles, and then cows are going underneath it. This is an emerging area called agrivoltaics, right? Like agriculture and electricity. I know, right? And so we're working with the University of Minnesota West Central Research and Outreach Center. Those are West Rock's cows, probably some of the most studied cows in all of Minnesota. And if you haven't heard about West Rock's work on hydrogen and ammonia, you have now. The West Central Research and Outreach Center is a leader in the state of Minnesota at thinking about hydrogen and ammonia and where that may or may not play a role in our future. Okay, so electricity has largely been cracked. This is exciting. Because climate hope, 15 years ago, wind wasn't the cheapest energy in the upper Midwest. Now it is. Solar prices have crashed. But the elephant in the room, Minnesota's cold. How will we heat ourselves in our businesses? So we've got to figure that out. So I want to give you just a snapshot of some thinking that we're doing. So one of the things that we're looking at is something called a thermal energy battery, where you take a lot of clean electricity from wind or solar and you shove it into a box of rocks. And those rocks get to be thousands of degrees Celsius, and then you can run water through it and make steam. So that's an interesting way to think about cutting the cord with natural gas. And so we wrote a grant to the Department of Energy and for decarbonizing our campus, and we got it. No, we didn't. We did not get it. We did not get it. That's okay. But we're thinking, we're dreaming, we're plotting, we're planning. And so in the last couple slides here, what I want to do is I want to talk about the impact of people, of having a coordinator. So one of the things that we've had the last couple years is we applied to the state of Minnesota for funding for a Morris Model coordinator. which is also the City of Morris coordinator. And I know you know this, but like humans make the difference. And so human power matters. And so this is Griffin. Yay, Griffin! They are our Morris Model coordinator, and they're kicking butt. And we're so proud of Griffin. Again, that Griffin is doing things like writing articles for the local newspaper and putting those blog posts, those blog posts online, which you can find at morrismodel.org, which is improving all the time. We have, Griffin wrote this awesome Energy and Environmental Roadmap for Minnesota Communities report. So this is a report you're definitely going to want to look at, which kind of outlines some of the, how have we been building out the Morris model in Morris? And if you're interested, we can chat and get you that. Inspired by our Zarbeckian friends, they have something called the Zarbeck Experience Pathway. So you walk around the city and you see signage, like on the side of buildings, like how many kilowatt hours they use. What a great idea to build energy literacy. So Griffin made all these signs. So on City Hall and here and the library, liquor store, you name it. You're walking around Morris, it's like, oh, I'm reading and learning something new. That's pretty cool. Good job, Griffin. That's awesome. Griffin is also doing some of the assessment work of basically carbon footprinting the city, working with the county on carbon footprinting, and trying to work with the school to get data to do carbon footprinting at the school as well. So again, establishing baselines. In 2024, this is where we were with our carbon footprint. Where will we be 10 years hence? We're also an EV Smart City. We've been working, the city has been part of the cohort program with the Great Plains Institute, working on the EV transition. So again, another program that you guys, you can consider being a part of. Another project being explored in Morris is, this is that brand new water treatment plant to make sure we don't put salt in the river. We're exploring, the city is exploring putting in a lot. It's like 700 kW of solar. We'll see if that comes to fruition. We're in discussion, right? And that would sit right next to the agrivoltaic field, which also is going to get 200 more kW this summer. So there will be over 500 kilowatts of solar powering the campus. And the campus needs 1,000 kilowatt at any given point. So we could talk more about, why do we just keep adding all this stuff? What are you doing? We're also going to get the first electric small transit bus in greater Minnesota. It was cool because this snowball's rolling. And so the Department of Transportation reached out and said, hey, Morris folks, you guys seem like you'll try anything. How about a cutaway bus? And so the city of Morris is leading in this interesting way, and then in the next year, they'll take on this new transit bus. And then, as we wrap up, more planning. So now we've entered Morris Model Strategic Planning 2.0 work. So again, we've had some increased community, we've had some more community resilience conversations. We brought back the report. We dusted off the report and said, remember we did that report thing? Where are we at? Have we made any progress? We had another big community event. This was a big community event where we got people together at tables. We specifically asked people to show up and put people around tables that we wanted to sit together. And what we find when we do that is a lot of times these folks are like, I've never sat with this cool person that does something like I do, ever. This happens so much. And it's awesome because you get cool people together. And so they each table focused and worked on one of the SDGs. Then they went out and visited with more community partners. And then we had a second community event where we invited people back and we said, what do you think about the goals and ideas that came out of all of this? Do you think it's a good idea? So we gave a preview of the updated plan, and now we have Morris Model, Strategic Plan 2.0. with 64 new projects for our community, 40 new goals. And you can see it's like a traffic, like going to different destinations. And so we got that inspiration from Zarbeck. And our goal is to work on, try to complete 10 projects per year for the new plan. So then 10 years, 10 times 10, we're gonna hit like another 100 things. And lastly, tools you can use. So I don't know how many of you have heard of something called PV Watts. Any folks here, PV Watts? So when you go home, check out PV Watts. The tools keep improving for us to do some quick calculations about what things could we, like, so this PV Watts will help you understand, is solar a good idea on my school or in my backyard? So this is, I'm modeling here a 20 kilowatt system. It says we're going to get about 26,000 kilowatt hours a year. This is real data from the Morris campus. We got about 23. So not perfect, but not totally outside of reality. This is that same system year to year, 2015, 2016, 2017. You can see like across the year. Here's another example. This is the 240 kilowatt agrivoltaic field up on panels. It said it should make 316,000. This is real data. It made about 371. It made even more. Okay. Lastly, I'm very excited to share with you all that the nerds at the University of Minnesota, at a group called the Minnesota Climate Adaptation Partnership, they have developed a new tool, and it got some press in the last week. New online tool allows for a close-up look into Minnesota's changing climate future. And so, if you've ever asked yourself, what will Ely look like in the future? This is the tool. And so this is where I live, as I mentioned, Stevens County. I used the tool, and I'm not super tech savvy, and I modeled one of the, after hundreds of hours on the University of Minnesota supercomputer, I looked at what are the scenarios about what would, how many days above 90°F would we have in Morris? And this simulation said we would have over 51 days, this isn't even the highest case, over 51 additional days above 90°F. And so that obviously is not Minnesota anymore. That's something else. And so this tool is there. It's called Minnesota Climate. And I invite you all to check out that tool and think about it. Think about it together and what it might mean. I believe the children are future. So tomorrow, I'm heading up to Finland, Minnesota, to work with them. The students from all across the state will be in Finland, Minnesota, participating in the Minnesota Envirothon, thinking about solutions. And this year, the topic, it was very nice. They asked if I would write the topic this year in the test. They're thinking about green steel. And so if you want to see what the students were thinking about, you can go read the Envirothon case scenario, the issue scenario. That's where I'll be tomorrow morning. But the youth are truly kicking butt, and they're looking to their intergenerational elders to think with them about solutions and being solution-focused. And so what I hope you saw in this whirlwind hour-long presentation was solutions, trying things. I didn't unpack all the mistakes that we've made and wrong starts, but trying things and bringing people together, and cultivating cultivating friendships at your school, at your whoever, starting and growing outwards with friendships you might not think, with unusual partners. Yeah. So again, with that, I thank you for the invitation to visit with all of you, and a big thanks to my many Morris colleagues and partners. So I'm representing the work tonight of many people. So that's quite an honor to be able to get to do that. But if you want to talk more, you can always reach out to me at good0044. So with that, thank you for the invitation tonight.